The space station floated in the darkness between three different star systems. It was so big that small ships looked like insects flying near it. The station was called Varus, and it had been training warriors for over 5,000 years. Every species that wanted to fight in the galactic military sent their best young soldiers here. The Galactic Combat Academy was the most famous school in all the known worlds. Yuna stood at the back of a very large room. She was 23 years old, with black hair tied back tight and eyes that watched everything. She was not tall. She was not big. Among the aliens around her, she looked small and weak. But her grandmother had taught her long ago that size meant nothing. Skill meant everything. The room was full of aliens. Some were twice her height with hard shells covering their bodies. Some had 4 arms or 6 legs. Some were made of crystal that glowed from inside. Some looked like lizards that walked on 2 feet. There were over 200 new students in this room, and Yuna was the only human. She did not mind being alone. She was used to it. At the front of the room, a platform rose from the floor. A massive alien stepped onto it, and the room became quiet. This alien was a Kaleth, one of the most famous warrior species in the galaxy. He stood almost 3 meters tall. His skin was blue-gray like stone, and his eyes burned like hot copper metal. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His name was Torvin, and he had been teaching at this academy for 90 years. "I am Instructor Torvin," he said. His voice was deep and strong. Translation devices in everyone's ears changed his words into languages they could understand. "For the next year, I will teach you how to fight with blades. Some of you will learn well. Most of you will fail. A few of you will die in training accidents. This is normal." Yuna did not react. She had known this academy was dangerous before she came. Torvin walked slowly across the platform. His 4 arms moved in ways that showed complete control. Each arm could work separately from the others. This was the great gift of the Kaleth species. Their brains could control each arm independently, like 4 different people sharing one body. "Let me explain something important," Torvin continued. "Every species has limits. The universe made you a certain way, and you cannot change that. You can train your body. You can sharpen your mind. But you cannot become something you are not." He pressed a button, and a large hologram appeared in the air. It showed the brain of a Kaleth, with lines of light moving through it. The Kaleth brain has 4 motor centers. This allows us to wield 4 blades at once. We can attack with 2 hands while defending with 2 others. No other species can match this. His copper eyes scanned the room with pride. This is why Kaleth have led galactic military doctrine for 3,000 years. The hologram changed to show other alien brains. Yuna watched carefully. The Vrix have a unique tail structure that acts as a 5th limb. The Morin crystalline form allows distributed consciousness. These species, along with the Kaleth, are the only 3 recognized dual-wielding capable species in the galaxy. Torvin paused. "Everyone else will learn to fight with a single blade. This is not an insult. This is biology." Yuna felt several aliens look at her. The only human. The representative of a species that had only joined galactic civilization 80 years ago. Humans were new. Humans were primitive. Humans had soft bodies and slow reflexes and brains that could only focus on one thing at a time. That is what the aliens believed. Torvin's gaze found Yuna at the back of the room. His expression showed something like pity, mixed with mild curiosity. "You are the human," he said. It was not a question. "Yes, Instructor. Your species requested to send a representative to this academy. The council approved it as a gesture of welcome to your people." He tilted his massive head. "I will be honest with you, human. Your species has no natural advantages in combat. You are not strong. You are not fast. Your senses are limited. Your neural architecture is simple. Yuna kept her face calm. I understand, Instructor. Do you? Torvin walked to the edge of the platform, looking down at her from across the room. I have studied human biology. Your brain has a single motor cortex. You can coordinate your limbs, yes, but you cannot operate them independently. When you swing a sword with one hand, your other hand will mirror the movement slightly. This is automatic. This cannot be trained away. I have heard this before, Yuna said. Then you understand why you will be limited to single blade training. There is no shame in this. Many great warriors throughout history have used only one sword. Torvin almost sounded kind. I will not hold you to the same standards as species with greater natural gifts. You will be judged against human capability, nothing more. Yuna wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him about her grandmother, who had trained her since she was 4 years old. She wanted to explain the sword forms that humans had developed over thousands of years of Earth history. She wanted to show him the calluses on her hands from 10,000 hours of practice. But she stayed quiet. Words meant nothing here. Only action would matter. Thank you, Instructor, she said simply. Torvin nodded, seemingly satisfied that the human understood her place. He turned back to address the whole room. Training begins tomorrow at first light. You will be assigned to groups based on your species and physical capabilities. Those of you capable of dual wielding will train separately. The rest will learn standard single blade forms. After the orientation ended, the students filed out of the room. Yuna walked slowly, watching the aliens around her. Many were talking with each other in their own languages, making friends, forming groups. Nobody talked to her. She did not care. In the hallway, a Vrix fell into step beside her. He was tall and thin, with green scales and a long tail that swayed behind him. His name was displayed on his uniform as Scal. You are the human, he said. His voice was high and hissing. Yes, I watched the instructor speak to you. He was not wrong, but he was not kind. The Vrix's large yellow eyes blinked sideways. I am sorry. It must be difficult to hear such things. Yuna shrugged. I have heard worse. Your species is new to the galaxy. Perhaps in time, humans will find their own strengths. Scal seemed to be trying to comfort her. Perhaps, Yuna agreed. She did not feel like explaining herself. Let them think what they wanted. Let them see her as the weak human who needed encouragement. She had come here for a reason, and that reason had nothing to do with what anyone expected. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. They will underestimate you. Let them. A warrior who's underestimated has already won half the battle. That night, Yuna lay in her small room in the human quarters. The bed was made for aliens twice her size, so she had pushed blankets into a nest in one corner. Through the window, she could see stars scattered across the blackness of space. Somewhere out there, past countless light years, was Earth, was home. She had left everything behind to come here. Her family, her friends, her planet, all for a chance to prove something that the entire galaxy believed was impossible. She closed her eyes and remembered her grandmother's training room. The smell of old wood and incense. The sound of swords cutting through air. The endless forms practiced until her arms burned and her legs shook. The body follows the mind, her grandmother had told her again and again. If your mind believes it is impossible, your body will agree. But if your mind refuses to accept limits, the body will find a way. Yuna did not know if this was true, but she was going to find out. Tomorrow, training would begin. Tomorrow, she would pick up a sword in front of aliens who had decided she was weak. Tomorrow, she would start the long journey toward proving them wrong. She smiled in the darkness and fell asleep. 3 months passed at the Galactic Combat Academy. Every day, Yuna woke before the artificial sunrise and trained until her muscles screamed. Every day, she watched the other students and learned what she could. Every day, she kept quiet and stayed small and let everyone believe she was just another weak human doing her best. The academy divided students into groups based on their species abilities. The Keleth trained together in a special hall, practicing forms that required 4 independent arms. The Vrix trained with their tails, using the extra limb to create attacks from unexpected angles. The Crystalline Mora trained in ways that hurt Yuna's eyes to watch, their bodies breaking apart and reforming around their blades. Yuna trained with the Single Blade group. There were about 60 students here, from 20 different species. All of them were considered limited by their biology. All of them would never be allowed to try dual-wielding Dot. Her instructor for this group was a younger Keleth named Baron. He was not unkind, but he clearly did not expect much from his students. He taught basic forms with patience, correcting mistakes with his 4 hands, showing movements that his students would never be able to copy completely. Good, he would say when Yuna completed a form. Very good for a human. She learned to hate those words. Very good for a human. As if she was a child being praised for trying hard instead of a warrior learning her craft. But she did not complain. She practiced every form until it was perfect. She studied the other students and found their weaknesses. She watched the dual-wielding groups from a distance, memorizing their movements at night in her small room. She practiced with 2 training swords she had made from metal pipes and tape. The academy did not allow single-blade students to have 2 weapons, so she kept this secret. Every night, she stood in the darkness and swung both swords until her arms burned and her vision blurred. Her grandmother had taught her these forms. They came from old Earth, from a time before humans knew aliens existed. Masters had spent centuries developing ways to use 2 blades at once. It was not about moving both arms independently. It was about making both arms move as one system, flowing together like 2 rivers joining. The aliens did not know about this. They thought dual-wielding required independent motor control, like the Keleth. But humans had found a different way. A way that used rhythm and flow and practiced movement, instead of raw brain power. Yuna did not know if it would work against alien fighters. But she was going to find out. The first combat trials came in the 4th month. Every student had to fight against holographic enemies in a simulation room. The enemies would be calibrated to each species' ability level. It was a test, not a real battle, but it would determine rankings for the rest of the year. Yuna watched her single-blade classmates go first. Most of them did well. A tall alien with gray skin scored high marks for defense. A small furry being with quick movement scored well for speed. A Mora student named Barrow surprised everyone by using her crystal body in ways the instructors had not expected. Then it was Yuna's turn. She walked into the simulation room, feeling the eyes of hundreds of students watching through observation windows. Instructor Torvin himself was there, his forearms crossed over his chest. He had come to watch the human attempt combat. Naren handed her a single training blade. The simulation is set for human parameters, he said. You will face 2 opponents. They will attack at speeds your reflexes can handle. Do your best. Yuna took the sword. It felt wrong in her hand. One sword always felt wrong now, after so many months of practicing with 2. I want to use 2 swords, she said. The room went quiet. Baron blinked his small eyes several times. What? I want to use 2 swords, Yuna repeated. She kept her voice calm and level. I request to be tested with dual blades. Baron looked confused. He turned toward the observation window where Torvin stood watching. The old Keleth instructor's copper eyes were fixed on Una. "Human," Torvin's voice came through speakers in the simulation room. "I explained this on your first day. Your species cannot dual wield. Your brain does not allow it. You will fail and embarrass yourself. I understand the risk, Instructor. I still request the test. The simulation is not calibrated for human dual wielding. It does not exist. If I set it to standard dual wield parameters, you will be facing Keleth-level opponents. The reaction times required will be far beyond human capability. I understand." There was a long pause. In the observation room, Una could see other students pointing at her, talking among themselves. She heard the word human several times. She heard laughter. Torvin leaned forward, his copper eyes burning with something she could not identify. "Why are you doing this?" Una thought about her grandmother. She thought about the 10,000 hours of practice. She thought about all the people who had told her what she could not do. "Because I want to know," she said simply. Another pause. Then Torvin made a gesture with one of his 4 hands. "Marin, give her 2 swords. Set the simulation to standard dual wield parameters. Keleth baseline." Baron's mouth opened. "Sir, that will be... I know what it will be." She asked. "Let her learn." Baron looked at Una with something like pity. Then he went to a weapons rack and returned with a second training blade. He handed both swords to her. Una took them. They felt right. They felt like coming home. 3 opponents, Baron said quietly. Keleth-level response times. "I am sorry, human. This will not go well for you." Una did not answer. She walked to the center of the simulation room and took her stance. Both swords came up. The right blade held forward. The left held back. It was a form her grandmother had called mountain and river. The right sword was the mountain, standing firm. The left sword was the river, waiting to flow. "Begin simulation," Torvin's voice commanded. The room flickered, and 3 holographic enemies appeared. They looked like Keleth warriors, tall and strong, each holding 2 blades. Their eyes glowed red, marking them as combat programs. The first one, attack. It moved fast. Faster than anything Una had faced in training. Its 2 swords came at her from different angles, one high and one low, designed to overwhelm a single-blade fighter. But Una was not a single-blade fighter. Her right sword rose to meet the high attack. Her left sword swept down to catch the low attack. The movements were not independent. They were one movement, one flowing form that her body had practiced 10,000 times. She did not think about moving 2 arms separately. She thought about nothing at all. The first enemy's attack was blocked. Before it could recover, Una was already moving. Her left sword swept up and around, forcing the enemy back, while her right sword thrust forward into the gap in its guard. The hologram flickered and disappeared. 1 down. The watching students fell silent. The second and third enemies attacked together. This was the Keleth strategy. Overwhelm with numbers. Attack from all sides. Force the opponent to choose which blade to block and accept the hit from the other. Una did not choose. She blocked both. Her swords became a wall of steel, spinning and cutting and flowing through forms that no one in this room had ever seen. She stepped between the 2 enemies, making them get in each other's way. She ducked under a strike and came up with both blades slashing. She rolled to the side and found her feet with her swords already moving. The second enemy fell. The third enemy pressed harder, its programming adapting to her style. Its attacks came faster, wilder, trying to find a gap in her defense. Una smiled. She stopped defending. Both her swords went on attack at once, a storm of steel that pushed the enemy back step by step. She used forms her grandmother had taught her, forms that were old when humans first built cities, forms that the galaxy had never seen. The third enemy fell, simulation complete. Yuna stood in the center of the room, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down her face and soaked her training clothes. Every muscle in her body burned. But she was standing, and her enemies were gone. She looked up at the observation window where Torvin stood. The old Caliph had not moved. His forearms were still crossed over his chest. His copper eyes were wide, wider than Yuna had ever seen them. The room was completely silent. Over 200 students and instructors, all staring at the human who had just done the impossible. Yuna raised both swords slightly. "Instructor," she said. "Define can't." Torvin did not answer. He just stared, and in that moment, something in the galaxy shifted. News spread through the academy like fire in dry grass. By the next morning, everyone had heard about the human who had beaten the dual-wield simulation. Stories grew larger with each telling. Some said she had moved faster than the eye could follow. Others claimed she had cut through all 3 enemies in seconds. A few whispered that humans had been hiding their true abilities from the galaxy all along. Yuna ignored the attention. She went to her morning training as usual, ate her meals alone as usual, and practiced in her room at night as usual. Nothing had changed for her. She had simply shown what she could do. Now came the harder part. Torvin summoned her to his office the day after the trial. The instructor's private room was at the top of the academy's central tower. It was a large space with high ceilings and walls covered in weapons from dozens of different worlds. Star maps floated in holographic frames, showing systems Yuna had never heard of. A desk made from black stone sat in the center. Torvin stood by a window, looking out at the stars. He did not turn around when she entered. "Sit," he said. Yuna sat in a chair that was too big for her. Her feet did not quite touch the floor. She waited. For a long time, Torvin was silent. His 4 hands hung at his sides, moving slightly in patterns she did not understand. Finally, he turned to face her. "I have been a combat instructor for 90 years, he said. His voice was quiet, missing the pride and authority he showed in class. "I have trained thousands of warriors from hundreds of species. I have seen talented fighters and hopeless ones. I thought I understood what the body can and cannot do." He moved to his desk and sat down across from her. His copper eyes studied her face. "Then I watched you. I watched a species that should not be able to dual-wield perform techniques I have never seen before. I watched biology break." Yuna shook her head. "Biology did not break, instructor. Your understanding of it was incomplete. Explain." She took a breath, thinking about how to describe something she had learned through feeling rather than words. "You said humans cannot dual-wield because our brains have only one motor center. We cannot move our arms independently like Caliph do." "This is true." She held up both hands, palms facing each other. "If I try to make my left hand draw a circle while my right hand draws a square, I will fail. My brain cannot process 2 different movements at once." "Then how? Because dual-wielding does not require independent movement." Yuna brought her hands together, fingers interlocking. "My grandmother taught me a different way. Instead of thinking of 2 swords as 2 separate weapons, I think of them as one weapon with 2 parts. The movements flow together. When my right sword blocks, my left sword attacks, but it is one movement, not 2. Torvin frowned. "That is impossible. A true dual-wield style requires each blade to operate on its own path. Independent trajectories. Independent trajectories, yes, but not independent control." Yuna stood up and demonstrated. She moved her hands in a flowing pattern, right going up as left went down, then switching, then crossing. "See? My hands are doing different things, but they are following one pattern, one rhythm. I am not thinking about 2 swords. I am thinking about one dance. The Keleth instructor watched her movements with intense focus. His copper eyes tracked every motion of her hands. "This is not how Keleth fight," he said slowly. "We control each arm with a separate part of our brain. Each blade follows its own will. And that is powerful," Una agreed. "But it is not the only way. Humans cannot do what you do. So we found our own path." Torvin was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up her neural scan from her medical file. The hologram showed her brain, simple and single-centered compared to a Keleth. "I looked at this scan yesterday," he said. "I looked at it 50 times. There is nothing special about your brain. Nothing that explains what you did. Because the explanation is not in my brain. It is in my practice." Una sat back down. "My grandmother trained me since I was 4 years old. 20 years. Every day. 10,000 hours, maybe more. She taught me forms that were developed over 1,500 years of human history. Hundreds of masters, all adding small improvements, all passing knowledge to the next generation. 1,500 years? Humans have been fighting with swords for a very long time, Instructor. Long before we knew aliens existed. We developed our own ways to use blades, ways that fit our bodies and our minds." She met his eyes. "You studied human biology. Did you study human history?" Torvin did not answer. His silence was answer enough. "On Earth," Una continued, "there is a famous story. For years, experts said that humans could not run 1 mile in less than 4 minutes. They said our bodies were not designed for it. Our hearts would fail. Our legs would break. Many people tried and failed. And then, one day, a man named Roger did it. He ran 1 mile in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. And? His body was special? No, his body was normal. But his mind refused to believe the limit was real." Una smiled slightly. "Within 3 years after he did it, the dozens of other runners matched his time. The limit was never physical. It was mental. Once one person proved it was possible, everyone else suddenly could do it too." Torvin leaned back in his chair. His forearms folded across his chest in the way Una had learned meant deep thinking. "You are saying that humans exceed their limits by refusing to believe in them. I'm saying that sometimes the limits we believe in are lies." She leaned forward. "Your calibration systems, your neural maps, your biological categories, they measure what species do naturally. They do not measure what species can learn to do, what they can train themselves to do, what they can become if they refuse to give up." The old instructor studied her for a long time. Outside the window, stars burned in the endless darkness. Ships moved between them, carrying beings who thought they understood the universe. "If what you say is true," Torvin said finally, "then everything I have taught for 90 years may be wrong. Not wrong, incomplete. The difference is not as large as you think." He stood and walked to the wall of weapons. His 4 hands touched different blades as he passed them. "These weapons came from worlds I have visited. Each one represents a culture, a history, a way of fighting. I thought I understood them all. I thought I had seen everything combat could be." He stopped at an empty space on the wall. "I have space here for something new, something I have never seen before." He turned to look at her. "Will you teach me?" Una was surprised. "Teach you?" "Your style, your forms, the techniques your grandmother passed to you." Torvin's copper eyes were serious. "I have spent my life believing I knew what was possible. You have shown me I was wrong. I want to understand how." It was strange, Una thought. She had come to this academy to learn from the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Now the greatest warrior wanted to learn from her. "I will teach you what I can," she said. "But I should warn you. These forms were designed for human bodies. For 2 arms, not 4. They may not work for a Keleth." Torvin made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then we will find out together. Perhaps that is the point, yes? Not to copy what others do, but to find our own path? Yuna smiled. My grandmother would have liked you, Instructor. I think I would have liked her too. Torvin moved back to his desk. Tomorrow, you will transfer to the Advanced Dual-Wield Training Group. I will handle the paperwork. There may be resistance from the other instructors, but they will learn to accept it. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. His copper eyes glinted. The advanced group trains twice as hard. Kala students will not be happy to have a human among them. You will have to prove yourself again and again. I know. Good. Torvin nodded once. Then go rest. Tomorrow, your real training begins. Yuna stood and walked to the door. Before she left, she stopped and looked back at the old instructor. Instructor Torvin? Why did you let me try the dual-wield simulation? You could have refused. You could have made me follow the rules. Torvin considered the question. Because you asked, he said. In 90 years, no single-blade student has ever asked to try dual-wielding. They accepted what they were told. They believed the limits were real. He smiled, a rare expression on his weathered face. You did not believe. I wanted to see what would happen when someone refused to accept the impossible. And now you know. Now I know. He nodded toward the door. Go, human. Go show the galaxy what refusing looks like. Yuna left his office and walked through the academy halls. Students stopped to stare at her. Some looked curious. Some looked angry. Some looked at her with something new in their eyes. Hope, perhaps. Or possibility. She did not know what would come next. She did not know if she could keep proving herself. But she knew one thing for certain. She had just changed everything. The advanced dual-wield training hall was unlike anything Yuna had seen before. The ceiling rose so high that clouds of condensation formed near the top. The floor was made of metal that could shift and change to create different terrains. Weapons lined every wall, more weapons than Yuna could count. Blades from every corner of the galaxy dot, and the students here were dangerous. 23 Keleth fighters trained in this hall. Each one born with 4 arms and the neural architecture to use them all. They moved like storms, their blades creating patterns that seemed impossible to follow. 5 Rick students used their tails as fifth weapons, striking from angles that normal beings could not defend against. 3 Mora warriors, crystalline and glowing, fought in ways that hurt Yuna's mind to watch Dodd, and now there was one human among them. On her first day in the advanced group, Yuna walked through the main doors and felt every eye turned to her. The training stopped. The clashing of blades went silent. 31 alien warriors stared at the small human with 2 swords at her hips. A large Keleth stepped forward. His name was Dovin, and he was the top-ranked student in the academy. His blue-gray skin was marked with scars from real combat, and his copper eyes burned with anger. This is a mistake, Dovin said. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Instructor Torvin has lost his mind. A human cannot train with dual wielders. Yuna did not respond. She just looked at him and waited. I saw your little trick in the simulation, Dovin continued. Fighting holographic enemies is not the same as fighting real warriors. The programs are predictable. They follow patterns. He spread all 4 arms wide. I do not follow patterns. I understand, Yuna said calmly. Do you? Dovin moved closer, towering over her. Your species has been in this galaxy for 80 years. My species has been training warriors for 8,000. You are children playing at a game you do not understand. Other Keleth students nodded in agreement. The Vrix and Mora watched silently, not taking sides, but clearly curious about what would happen. Yuna thought about her grandmother. She thought about all the times she had been told what she could not do. She thought about the long nights of practice, the burning muscles, the countless failures before every success. "Would you like to test that theory?" she asked quietly. The room went still. Dovin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to fight me? Here? Now? If you are willing." For a moment, Una thought Dovin would refuse. Fighting an opponent so obviously weaker would give him no honor. But she saw something in his eyes, a need to prove that the human was nothing special, that the simulation had been a trick. "Training rules," Dovin said. "First to 3 clean touches. No fatal strikes." He drew 2 of his 4 swords. "I will only use 2 blades. I would not want to embarrass you too badly." Una drew her own 2 swords. They felt right in her hands, balanced and familiar. "That is kind of you." They moved to the center of the training floor. Other students formed a circle around them, watching with intense interest. Word would spread through the academy within hours. Everyone would know what happened here. Dovin took his stance. Even with only 2 swords, he was impressive. His form was perfect, developed over years of training in the most advanced combat system in the galaxy. His reach was longer than hers. His strength was greater. By every measure, he should win easily. Una took her grandmother's stance. Mountain and river. Right sword forward, left sword back. Feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent. "Begin," someone called. Dovin attacked. He was fast. Faster than the simulation. His 2 blades came at her from different angles, a high strike and a low strike at the same time. It was a basic Keleth opening, designed to test an opponent's ability to defend against multiple attacks. Una blocked both. Her mountain caught the high strike. Her river swept the low strike aside. She stepped forward into the space his attack created and thrust with her right sword. Dovin twisted away, barely avoiding the touch. His copper eyes widened slightly. He had expected to score on the first exchange. "Lucky," he said. He attacked again, harder this time. His blades moved in complex patterns, feints and strikes mixing together. He was not testing her anymore. He was trying to win. Una fell into the rhythm her grandmother had taught her. She did not think. Thinking was too slow. She let her body move through forms that had practiced 10,000 times, letting muscle memory guide her swords. Block, sweep, thrust. Dodge, parry, cut. The movements flowed together like water, each one leading to the next. She was not fighting with 2 independent swords. She was fighting with one weapon that had 2 parts. Dovin's attacks grew more desperate. He was pushing harder, using more speed, trying to overwhelm her. But Una stayed calm. She kept her breathing steady. She kept her mind empty. An opening appeared. Dovin overextended on a thrust, his right side momentarily unguarded. Una's left sword was already moving, guided by instinct rather than thought. It swept up and touched his ribs. "First touch," the watching students announced. "Human." Dovin snarled and stepped back. His forearms trembled with anger. No, not just anger, fear. He was beginning to understand that this was not a trick. The human could actually fight. He drew his other 2 swords. "Enough games," he said. "Let us see how you handle 4 blades." Una did not argue. She had known this would happen. She had prepared for a dot. Dovin attacked with all 4 arms moving. It was like facing a wall of steel. Blades came from everywhere at once, high and low, left and right, each one threatening to end her. This was true Keleth fighting, the style that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia. Una retreated. There was no shame in this. She needed space to find her rhythm against a new pattern of attack. She blocked what she could and dodged what she could not, her body moving through defensive forms while her mind studied Dovin's technique. He was good. Very good. But he was also predictable. His forearms moved independently, yes, but they followed patterns. Standard Kelith patterns taught in this very academy. He had trained for years to use these patterns, and now they were built into his body. Yuna had trained differently. She changed her style. Instead of defending against each blade separately, she began to predict where the next attack would come. She moved before the strike landed, positioning herself in spots where Dovin's patterns created gaps. She was not faster than him, but she was seeing what he would do before he did it. Dovin's second sword touched empty air where Yuna had been a moment before. His third sword swung at her head, but she was already ducking. His fourth sword thrust at her chest, but she twisted to the side dot, and then she was inside his guard. Her right sword touched his chest. Her left sword touched his neck. 2 touches, both clean. Second and third touch, the students announced. Their voices sounded strange, stunned, human winds. The training hall was silent. Dovin stood frozen, Yuna's sword still resting against his body. His copper eyes stared down at her, wide with disbelief. "How?" he whispered. "How did you do that?" Yuna withdrew her swords and stepped back. "I practiced," she said simply. "No, that is not possible. I have 4 arms. I have the neural architecture. I have trained since I was a child." Dovin's voice cracked. "You are just a human." "Yes," Yuna agreed. "I am just a human. And I beat you." She turned and walked away from him, toward the edge of the training circle. The watching students parted to let her through. Some looked at her with respect. Some looked at her with fear. Some looked at her with something else, a new kind of wondering. Behind her, she heard Dovin sink to his knees. The lesson had been clear. Talent was not everything. Biology was not everything. The greatest natural gifts in the galaxy could be matched by skill, by practice, by the refusal to accept limits. Yun found a spot at the edge of the training hall and began to practice her forms. Around her, the other students slowly returned to their own training. But she noticed something different about them now. They were watching her, not with anger or pity, with curiosity. Some of them, she suspected, were wondering if they had also accepted limits that were not real. Good, Yuna thought. Let them wonder. The next morning, 3 students approached her and asked if she would show them how she trained. The morning after that, 7 more. By the end of the week, half the advanced class was practicing human sword forms in addition to their own. Something was changing. Something important. And Yuna stood at the center of it, exactly where her grandmother had always told her she would be. "The first one through the wall always gets hurt," her grandmother had said. "But they make a path for everyone who comes after." Yuna was through the wall now, and the path behind her was already filling with others. The graduation ceremony was held in the Grand Hall of Station Varys, a massive chamber that could hold 10,000 beings. Light poured through crystal windows that showed the stars outside. Flags from every member species of the Galactic Alliance hung from the ceiling. Music played from hidden speakers, a strange mix of sounds from hundreds of different worlds. Yuna stood at attention with her graduating class. She wore the formal uniform of the Academy, dark blue with silver trim, fitted to her small human frame. At her hips hung 2 ceremonial swords, real blades made of galactic steel, given to her by Instructor Torvin himself. She was the first human to graduate from the Galactic Combat Academy. She was the first single motor cortex species to be recognized as a dual wielder. She was the first many things, and she tried not to think about any of them. Around her stood aliens she had come to know over the past year. Skeldevrix, who had been kind to her on her first day. Baro the Mora, who had surprised everyone in the early trials. Dovin the Kelith, who had become something like a friend after she beat him in the training hall. They had all changed during their time at the academy. They had all learned that limits were not always real. Instructor Torvin walked to the front of the hall. His forearms were folded behind his back in the formal Kellis position. His copper eyes swept across the graduates, and when they found Yuna, they paused for just a moment. "Today," Torvin began, his voice carrying through the hall, "you become warriors of the Galactic Alliance. You have trained. You have suffered. You have proven yourselves worthy of the title you will receive. But before we complete the ceremony, I must make an announcement." The hall grew quiet. Announcements during graduation were rare. For 90 years, I have taught combat doctrine at this academy. I have repeated the same lessons to every class. Biology determines capability. Neural architecture defines potential. Some things are simply impossible for certain species. Torvin paused. I was wrong. A murmur spread through the crowd of watching dignitaries and family members. This was unexpected. 1 year ago, a human named Yuna joined this academy. I told her that her species could not dual wield. I told her that her brain was not capable of it. I told her to accept her limitations. Torvin's voice grew stronger. She did not accept. She asked to try, and she succeeded. He turned to look directly at Yuna. Lieutenant Yuna did not break biology. She did not cheat the rules of the universe. She simply found a different path to the same destination. Her species developed techniques over 1,500 years that our scientists said were impossible. They practiced until their bodies learned what their brains supposedly could not do. He raised one of his 4 hands. She taught me that we do not know the limits of what training and will can achieve. The hall was completely silent now. Today, I announce a change to Academy doctrine. From this day forward, we will no longer tell any species what they cannot do. We will test. We will measure. We will set challenges. But we will not declare anything impossible until it has been proven impossible, not just assumed. He turned to address the full crowd. When a student asks to try something we believe cannot be done, we will let them try. When a species claims to have abilities we do not understand, we will study them instead of dismissing them. When someone picks up 2 swords and asks us to define what they cannot do, we will not answer. We will watch and learn. Torvin looked back at Yuna one more time. The new doctrine is this. The word impossible is not a fact. It is a challenge. And sometimes, the right response to that challenge is silence. He stepped back and the graduation ceremony continued. Names were called. Ranks were given. Yuna received her commission as lieutenant in the Galactic Alliance military. The 2 swords at her hips marked her as a recognized dual wielder, equal in status to any Kelith or Vrix or Mora. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Dignitaries from dozens of species came to meet the human who had changed Academy doctrine. Military commanders asked about her training methods. Scientists wanted to study her brain. Historians wanted to record her story. Yuna answered their questions politely, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about her grandmother, who had died 3 years before Yuna came to the academy. She was thinking about all the masters who had developed the sword forms, generation after generation, never knowing that their work would one day change how the galaxy understood combat. She found a quiet corner and stood there, looking out at the stars. Torvin found her there. "You are not enjoying your victory," he observed. "It is not my victory. It belongs to everyone who trained me, everyone who came before." Yuna touched the hilt of one of her swords. "My grandmother should be here. She is the one who made this possible." "Then honor her by continuing," Torvin said simply. "You have opened a door. Now you must walk through it and show others the way. How?" "What am I supposed to do now?" Torvin considered the question. "The military will give you assignments. You will serve, and you will fight, and you will prove again and again that you belong. But that is not the important part. He placed one of his 4 hands on her shoulder. The important part is what you teach others while you do it. Teach? You have already started. Half of my advanced class is practicing human sword forms now. Other species are beginning to question their own limits. Scientists are reviewing biological capability theories that have been accepted for centuries. His copper eyes gleamed. You have started a change. The question is whether you will see it through. Yuna thought about this. She had come to the academy to prove herself. She had never thought about what would come after. I do not know if I am ready to be a teacher. No one is ever ready. We become ready by doing. Torvin stepped back. But that is a conversation for another day. Tonight, you should celebrate. You have earned it. He walked away, leaving Yuna alone with the stars. She stood there for a long time, thinking. In the reflection of the crystal window, she could almost see her grandmother standing beside her. Small and strong, with hands rough from decades of sword work, with eyes that saw everything and accepted nothing less than the best. I did it, Yuna whispered to the reflection. I showed them. The reflection smiled back at her. Of course you did. You are my granddaughter. You were never going to accept their limits. Footsteps approached. Yuna turned to see a young Kelef cadet, maybe 15 years old, standing nervously nearby. He was small for his species, with only 2 arms developed so far. The other 2 were still growing, would not reach full size for another few years. Lieutenant Yuna? He asked, his voice uncertain. Yes, I watched your graduation. I heard what Instructor Torvin said about you. The young Kelef hesitated. I was wondering if I could ask you something. Go ahead. The other cadets say that I am weak because my arms are still growing. They say I will never be a good warrior because I started training late. His copper eyes, still pale with youth, looked at her with desperate hope. Is that true? Are some of us just born to fail? Yuna looked at this young alien, barely more than a child, asking the same question she had asked herself 100 times. She drew one of her swords and held it out to him, hilt first. Take this. The young Kelef took the sword carefully. It looked strange in his 2-arm grip, but he held it properly. Your classmates told you what you cannot do, Yuna said. They set limits for you based on what they believe. The question is whether you will accept their limits or find your own. But they are right. I am not as strong. I was not as strong either. I did not have 4 arms. I did not have the right brain structure. Every expert in the galaxy said humans could not dual wield. She smiled. I decided that their opinion did not matter. Only my training mattered. Only my will mattered. The young Kelef looked at the sword in his hands, then back at her. You trained every day, he said slowly. Even when everyone said it was impossible. Yes, for years. Yes, and you did not give up. Even once. Never. Yuna took the sword back and sheathed it. That is the only secret. Not talent. Not biology. Just the refusal to accept that you cannot do something. Everything else follows from that. The young Kelef straightened up. Something changed in his eyes. Not confidence, not yet, but the beginning of it. The first small flame. Thank you, Lieutenant. Thank me by proving them wrong, Yuna said. That is the best thanks I can receive. She watched the young alien walk away, moving a little taller than before. He would struggle. He would fail many times. But maybe, just maybe, he would also succeed. Yuna turned back to the stars. A grandmother's voice whispered in her memory one last time. The first one through the wall makes a path. But the real victory is when others follow. Others were following now. The path was open. Una smiled and walked out into the galaxy, toward whatever came next. She was ready.